Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and I'm here with my friend Patrick.
How's it going, everyone?
And today we're going to talk about something which should be obvious based on my shirt and even Patrick's shirt.
That's
if you
right.
think about it. Today we're talking about The Batman. Not quite a review. We talked a little bit about that over on the Dork Squad, which I'll put a link to that in the description. I'll also link my written review of the movie in the description. Today's topic is going to be a little different. So, Patrick, you saw there was some article that, was it Matt Reeves who said that?
Yes. Yeah, Matt Reeves was describing it as that his Batman film was was more of a horror-esque as a kind of feature, which is very intriguing.
I heard it described as an almost horror movie. So, for this week's Dead Talk, we are going to sit down and we're going to look at The Batman. Spoiler warning right now. If you haven't seen it, turn this off because we are going to get into spoilers. And we are going to discuss and determine once and for all, is The Batman a horror movie?
Ooh.
But first, we have horror news and Patrick's segment, which I believe you have an awesome new name for.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So, currently, after a little bit of figuring out, searching, and a lot of wordplay, I believe that I have now officially come up with our newest DVD and 4K release thing, segment, which we will call Movies from the Crypt.
Because they're being resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
I liked your Crypt Keeper laugh.
Why thank you, Dave.
Does that hurt your throat to do? I heard it hurt the guy's throat when he did it.
Oh yeah, John Kaser. For me, not as much. I think because my voice is more naturally higher pitched, so I think I'm able to kind of do that. Plus, I do love doing unique voice inflections. So, hello, boils and ghouls. It's your pal, the Movie Keeper.
We're gonna have to get him on an animated thing or something. So tell us, Patrick, in Movies from the Crypt, what can we expect coming out soon?
Well, glad you asked. So currently, we got several Shout and Scream Factory releases coming up, along with some other announcements. So let's get into that for Movies from the Crypt. Howling and Mauling onto the scene is a limited edition 4K release of An American Werewolf in London from Arrow Films, which is coming out March 15th.
Without a doubt, I know there's a big debate, Howling versus American Werewolf. I am team American Werewolf, that is the greatest werewolf movie ever made. And so I already own it on Blu-ray, so I don't want to have to buy it again, but I kind of, if it's going to have if it has new bonus stuff that wasn't on the other one, I'll go for it.
Currently, I believe everything will be ported over. I don't know if there's any additional stuff, because I know there was some, for example, with Flash Gordon, when there was an extra Blu-ray in addition to the 4K of the cast reunion. So,
cool.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about this one, but I'll look into it.
But if you don't have it already, now's a good time to get it from that release.
Absolutely, one of my favorite werewolf films, and just a gold standard. Yes, agreed.
I know you probably like the original Wolfman better.
Oh no, I love both personally. Without the Wolfman, there would be no American Werewolf in London.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. But also, to that extent, without folklore in general, there would be no stories of men becoming beasts.
That is true. Fun fact, they used to call me Werewolf in high school because my very hairy arms. So, moving on, what's next?
Yes, moving on. We got There's another release coming out on 4K. So say his name 5 times and he shall appear on 4K. That's right. The original is a Candyman will be coming to 4K.
The original.
Yes, which is going to be released on May 24th, courtesy of Scream Factory.
One of the best 90s horror movies, which I know the new one kind of had a mixed reception. There were parts I liked, there were parts I didn't. But that original is just, it's like hauntingly beautiful, especially that score.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen the original myself, including the extended scene, and Tony Todd absolutely delivers. I sincerely mean that. And a very fun fact too. During his scene with the bees surrounding him, he actually got it in his contract that for every bee sting that he suffered for filming, he would get an extra $1,000.
I heard that, and I forget how much they wound up paying him.
I think it was 37. I think that was the number.
God.
Yeah, it was
That's
between 20.
Bee sting.
Yeah, it was between 20 to 30. But it was. Yeah, and like I said, that was like, back when practical effects were still in full swing with that. I mean, CGI was just starting to kind of emerge, but they were really committed to having real bees for that.
Yeah,
one.
they went all out. He's an awesome. He actually follows. He follows Halloween year round on Twitter. Tony Todd. We follow each other.
That's all. Oh, that is
he's
wonderful.
Really cool guy. Really classy. Absolutely love him. I'd love to actually meet him in person at a convention. He's on my list of people that I want to actually meet. So stay tuned. Maybe one day we'll get a video of that.
Hopefully so. It would be an honor and a pleasure. Okay, then. Moving on, we got up next. We got the Witching Hour as it draws near for this 1996 teen classic, The Craft, which is also coming out in 4K. Later this year on May 17th. So expect a nice Conjuring to begin during that time.
Lot of heavy hitters. You got American Werewolf. I'm not gonna lie. Usually when you do this segment, I've only heard of a couple of them, but they're going all out. Like American Werewolf, Candyman, The Craft.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. It seems that they're really starting to pump out more of the 4K stuff, which is just awesome, and I'm 100% for it myself. Yeah, Shout and Scream is a Shout/Scream Factory. Really, just from my research this week, they just dropped a lot of announcements, or is it on Tuesday, Wednesday? So I've just been gathering it all up and presenting it to all of you.
All right.
So we got two more coming up. First up, we got the alien horror classic Life Force, directed by famed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre director Tobe Hooper, which is going to get a 4K release. So expected to invade your video library on May 24th. May 24th.
Nice. That's another very didn't really get a lot of respect or acclaim when it came out. That's one that I think was definitely more of a cult one that gained traction. But it's a really cool, surreal. It's based on, I think it's based on a 1930s pulp novel where it's like vampires from space. But they didn't want to call it that because they thought that sounded a bit too 1950s creature feature.
Ah, that would make sense.
So they called it Life Force instead. But really cool movie. It's got Patrick Stewart.
Ooh,
it's
very
got
nice.
Matilda May. But it's I actually just did this past year. I did an article for its I think it was its 35th anniversary.
Yeah, oh wow, that's really cool. I'll definitely need to check that out myself. Wonderful. So yeah, looking forward to that. Okay, we got two more? Coming up next, we have a unique creature feature. Speaking of which,
All right.
The Ghost in the Darkness, which is mauling its way onto Blu-ray via Shout Factory on May 10th, starring Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this one.
I haven't, and I feel weird because I know who Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer are. What can you tell me about this one?
This one, I do have a little background on this one. This is actually based on a true story, true events.
Oh.
In which it takes place back in the very late early 1900s. This is a story about a continental railway in Africa that was being built, and several packs of lions actually coming out and killing the various railroad workers. So they have to send out an investigation team to find and track down these man-eaters. The poster is very striking. It was something that I actually remember very fondly, as I had a movie calendar poster, which had like the upcoming films of the time, and The Ghost in the Darkness had such a striking, poster. And I was like, wow, like that looks so cool. Like, so
I'll have to check that out. What's that one called again?
The Ghost in the Darkness.
When I hear that title, I'm going to be honest, my first thought does not go to man-eating lions.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's weird.
I want to see it now. I'm really curious because I love a good like animal horror movie.
Yeah,
and lions are, you know.
You know what? I think that should be something that we'll review at some point.
We will.
I definitely want to see. I definitely want to see it myself.
After this Blu-ray comes out, we'll do an obscure review so we can show everyone else how fun and weird it is.
Absolutely.
And then I think you said you have one more.
Yes, I have one more from our Movies from the Crypt segment. And this is very ironic because last week we were talking about Italian horror, which is yeah, I know it's kind of funny. Like, you know, it just comes all full circle because we have a film production studio, Cauldron Films. That's going to be releasing several Italian titles coming up in the near future. So,
nice.
So stay tuned for this because as it comes out, I'll keep reporting on it. So that is my segment for Movies from the Crypt, and thanks for coming in and slamming it shut. Till next week.
All right. Then in horror news, we have a couple of sad things. We had a couple of people pass away this past week.
Mm-hmm.
We had Alan Ladd Jr., who is, some of you may know, huge movie producer, was very instrumental in, Ridley Scott's Alien and a ton of other stuff. He was a producer at Fox. You know, too many to name. I think you look at his obituary, and Alien's the one he's really known for, and I think you can elaborate a little bit on why that is.
Yes, I can actually. So he was very much a champion of the film when he learned about it. When talking with Ridley Scott, he absolutely wanted to have this made. So he greenlit it. He championed it to the board of directors. And really got involved with the financial side and making sure that they had the amount of money that was needed, because originally it was going to be a lower budget, and he bumped it up a bit higher, like an extra $1 million or $2 million, just to get it done. And also, he's the man credited for the request of having the main lead of Ripley be a female versus a male lead at the time. Because he wanted to buck the trend of sci-fi films at the time to do something a little more contemporary. So This was it was a really big deal, and especially having a female lead, let alone an up-and-comer by the name of Sigourney Weaver, who really showed her stuff, and the rest is history. Her career soared as a result of Alien. and the various sequels that she was a part of, along with being in Ghostbusters and so many other films that are just countless. And of course, like, we have Alan Ladd Jr. to thank for a lot of these.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that movie without her now. So may he rest in peace for the many contributions he made, and all the people who were inspired by Alien.
Mm-hmm.
It's just on another sad note, we lost Hammer horror actress Veronica Carlson. She had appeared in movies like Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, The Horror of Frankenstein. I also believe she was in the original Casino Royale in an early uncredited role. So really kind of iconic in that like 50s, 60s, 70s era of horror, which I know we're both huge fans of. That's sort of
absolutely
the midsection. You're a bit more well versed in the older horror. I'm well versed in newer horror.
Mm-hmm.
That era is kind of like the crossover between the two.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
The area where we both operate.
Yes, I would agree with you on that one.
So that was sad to see.
Indeed. May she rest in peace, along with Alan Ladd Jr.
And then I know you were very anxious to talk about this, along with a teaser for next week. Tell us what is premiering, or what has premiered by the time this airs.
Yes, so Friday, March 4th, exclusively from the Gizmoplex, we have the very first episode of Season 13 from Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm a big fan of Mystery Science Theater, and I'm very happy to finally announce that, and it's been well over like 2-3 years since the last season, because originally Netflix had sadly canceled Mystery Science Theater, which makes completely no sense to me, because...
Oh, that wasn't even like a COVID thing? They just canceled it?
Yeah, it was
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they just outright canceled it. It is a shame, because it was very well received. It had a lot of new fans coming in, subscribing to Netflix. And it's just a shame that just after the second season, of season 12, that was it. And they decided we're not going to continue it anymore. However, the behind the scenes, Joel Hodgson had been considering of what to do next. Mm-hmm. A lot of fans, of course, asking, hey, maybe you should put it on Shudder. Like, they would be, more than willing to, give you a boost. And I think he had considered it, but in the end, he realized that Mystery Science Theater itself is a very fan-driven community and a very fan-driven show. So
definitely.
So I think, like, in Joel's wisdom, and I actually do agree with him on this one, he decided, as long as the fans want Mystery Science Theater, we'll do it more independently. So he launched a second Kickstarter, which of course I backed, because I love the guy, wonderful man, very funny and very sincere, and he just wanted to continue this show. So because of that, we're going to have the very first episode titled Santo and the Treasure of Dracula, which will be the first episode of season 13.
By the time this airs, that will have shown already.
Yes, and I, along with our associate John, are planning to give a little talk about some of our favorite horror-themed episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
So next week's Dead Talk, you actually will not see me. Patrick and John will take that one over, and it will be all about Mystery Science Theater, and then I will be back the week after that. I'm on a very, very secret mission next weekend, which you will all see a video about in due time.
Yes, and we wish you well.
All right. So, on to the Batman. Dun dun dun.
I am the night.
I am the vengeance. I can't do a Batman voice without defaulting to Christian Bale. It's the voice you want to do.
Yeah. It's either that or Michael Keaton's Batman, which is also a very unique voice as well.
But this new one, so back to
Oh,
back
yes.
to the channel. This is Halloween year round, and I was delighted, as I'm sure many horror fans were delighted. The movie opens up on Halloween night.
Yes.
So, if for no other, I mean, we're going to get more into other reasons later, but
Of course.
right from the get-go, this is a Halloween movie. This is a movie that you could watch on Halloween night. You know, it starts then. It takes place over the course of a few days into, like, November 6th. But, you know, opening scene, it's a dark, rainy night in Gotham. People are in costumes, and it's like, it's not that weird for Batman to be out that night in a costume, too.
Yep. And of course, seeing a little kid getting ready to trick or treat.
You know, I was Batman on Halloween, so it was, it hit very close to home, and I really,
Ironic. Oh, sorry. No, you go first, and I'll do my thing.
I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
That's wonderful. And for me personally, like, I dressed up as the Riddler myself. Was it 1 year? As at the time, Batman Forever was out, and of course, the Riddler was the big thing. Jim Carrey, like, you know, in the role, and I really loved his performance in that. And of course, I had to dress up as the Riddler for Halloween. And actually,
Naturally.
that and from Batman the Animated Series, like, is one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of the Riddler as well. And I've always been, and ever since then, like, I've always been a fan of him. Like, he's a very unique and interesting character.
He is. And I think that, you know, in addition to, you know, it's set on Halloween, it's you know, loosely based on the comic book, The Long Halloween.
Yes, it draws very heavy inspiration from it.
And, you know, our Riddler gets a bit of a makeover, which I will argue it's less about Batman is still in line with Batman. You know, he's always been gritty. He's always, well, not always, not Adam West, but he's always been like that gruff, you know, crime-fighting ninja who lurks in the shadows. Riddler, I think, is what makes this more like a horror movie. It's no secret. You watch the trailers, you see the movie. It almost tricks you into thinking it's a David Fincher movie.
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling at parts.
You know, like, just the tone of it, the lighting, you know, even the way that it's shot in, there's fewer wide shots of action and more kind of close-up subjective shots where it feels like you're watching a gritty crime thriller, which brings us to an age-old debate. Are psychological crime thrillers horror movies? I know. So Silence of the Lambs wins the big five at the Oscars, and you have some people like, oh, great, a horror movie won. And you have other people say, well, Silence of the Lambs is not a horror movie. It's a psychological thriller. Which, to quote Joe Bob Briggs, it's about a guy who eats people. That's a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty horrifying.
It is. Absolutely.
So I think that Riddler's sort of, you know, half Zodiac, half Jigsaw Killer, half, I guess third Unabomber, are all kind of play into that where he feels more like a real-life serial killer.
Absolutely. Also, don't forget about Seven, too.
Yeah, I mean, he very much, his you know, his whole scheme against society is not unlike, you know, John Doe in that movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Even his motivation, too. Especially, like, how far does one go for one's own justice? And then, in this case, he's trying to expose injustice in Gotham. But in the end, it ultimately just consumes him. Destroys him, like, you know, mentally from the inside out. And you see that, like, you know, in the riddles that he poses. And in his psychoses.
I guess the question is, were this not... Forget Batman is in this movie. Treat it as just a movie about a detective named Gordon trying to solve this case. It's a horror movie. You've got a serial killer who's killing people in some pretty nasty ways. I mean, did you see the way, the device that he had the D.A. Coulson strapped to? That's like something Jigsaw would do.
Oh, absolutely.
With like the explosive and do this and the little messages. He never quite said, I want to play a game. But, looking at the Saw series, a lot of people have drawn parallels between Jigsaw and the Riddler, that he's like the Riddler without the sense of humor, where Jigsaw has this very sick, twisted sense of cosmic justice, where
yes.
I did an alignment chart for horror villains, for those familiar with the D&D alignment chart. And Jigsaw was my pick for lawful evil. Because he does these despicable things, but like in his mind, of course it's justified. He's trying to rehabilitate people. He's trying to show them the error of their ways. And I almost think the Riddler, there's always kind of a dichotomy between Riddler and Joker. And spoiler alert, we get a little bit of the Joker in this in Arkham, which we'll see where that leads depending on how well the movie does and whether or not it gets a sequel. But I think the major difference between the two is the Riddler is lawful evil, the Joker is chaotic evil.
Yes.
And I think that's a very clear distinction, that Riddler is... Now, I'm curious to get your opinion. I know you love the Riddler. How did you feel about this interpretation of him as more like a Zodiac killer?
A very excellent question, my friend. And overall, for the way they set up the film and for the way they portrayed him as a Zodiac-esque killer, I thought it was very interesting. I wasn't against the idea. I know, like, some people might have been, but at the same time, though, I wanted to kind of just let the movie play itself out and just show me, like, what was the idea. And I wasn't against it. I thought it was, like, very unique. And I overall, I thought by the end, it's like, I was just very impressed. Like, Paul Dano, like, did an incredible job portraying, like, like a Riddler who more or less toys with people, but also he's trying to, more or less make a real point, versus, say, like, the Riddler from, like, other various sources where basically he's trying to show himself being the morally intellectual superior above all as a Gotham. Especially, like, I'm not sure if you've ever played any of the Arkham games.
I have not, but I'm familiar with.
Okay, so like especially I think with the last one, like Arkham Knight, like you really start to see like the Riddler like break down to the point where he becomes more of a Jigsaw as a killer, where he's even saying like to Batman, "Why are you like going out and saving these criminals? You know they're just going to go out and kill again. I'm doing society a favor." So once again, that like egotistical, like I am morally superior.
There's a definite narcissism with that I think a lot of serial killers have. I think it's partly what motivates them, and I guess the question is, to my point earlier. If you take Batman out of this movie, would you consider this a horror movie? I think we would both agree Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there's no question there. It's got cannibals, the scene where he escapes in the in the makeshift cell in the museum.
Yes. And
absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, and not only that, you add Buffalo Bill into the mix, and it really gets horrifying. My God. Yeah.
I love how that movie takes Hannibal Lecter in the beginning, and it's like, to get you to kind of like this guy, we've got to give you another killer who's even scarier. Yes. And that's Buffalo Bill.
Yes.
So I think we would agree that is a horror movie.
Yeah.
7. I would say 7 is definitely more of a police procedural. But again, it still has And I almost think that it's the approach that people look at.
Yes.
No one disputes that Saw is a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But would you consider Criminal Minds a horror TV show?
That is a good question.
I think a lot of people wouldn't, and I think it's because its focus is less on the killers being the main characters and the people solving the crime. That, horror is a subjective term.
Yes.
It's like comedy. Is something a comedy if it doesn't make you laugh?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Or, is it a comedy if it's not trying to make you laugh?
That is true.
Just like, is horror really horror unless it's trying to scare you? Now, there are certainly scenes in this movie that, to a person who is, squeamish, it might scare them. They might be like, oh my God, why are they putting this in a Batman movie?
Yeah, that's true. Especially when Commissioner Gordon, flashed that one photo to as a penguin of as a man's face, had been mauled by rats, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty intense. Even
that's what I mean. Like the device with the rats.
Mm-hmm.
That's like for those who have seen Sinister 2. Very similar to one of the kills in that movie in the church, which actually, horrifyingly enough, was a real life form of torture and execution used in the Middle Ages, where they would put a rat in like a cup or something, put it up to your skin, and then heat it up with fire, so the rat would, in desperation, burrow into you to get away from the heat.
Yes, I have read up on that. That was pretty horrifying.
So it's why I think this, even more so than other Batman movies, yes, the Joker kills people. The Joker does horrifying things to people, but it's never about, he's shooting them or he's stabbing them. But it's not to this intense extent that the Riddler is doing here.
Yeah, that is true. And for me personally, while I do like like I said, for me, there's different versions of the Riddler that I definitely enjoy. Overall, of course, from the animated series, more or less a scorned employee who gets revenge on his as a boss. I love how they more or less incorporate the elements of his game into Batman and Robin trying to track down. I enjoyed that because I enjoyed more from the intellectual perspective. That's what I really love. I love it when my Riddler, really can test Batman's as a metal as the world's greatest detective. When that happens, I really enjoy that. And while this version of the Riddler overall, like I said, is more of a Zodiac killer and is definitely more intense, and it took me a little bit of time to kind of warm up to it, but at the same time, though, in the comics and in other media, yeah, the Riddler has been known to really go so far to the point of being such an egotistical narcissist that he's willing to throw human lives away just so that he can best bat as a Batman. So it made sense for me.
Are you a Batman villain if you're not willing to do that?
I guess is it? Well, that's also the other interesting thing about. For example, Mr. Freeze, especially from the animated series. Initially, his main goal was just to get revenge on his as a former employer for the death of his own wife. And
yeah, he's definitely got noble intentions.
Right. It's one of the very rare times where the audience member, you understand why the villain's doing this, and even maybe to an extent you feel justified of wanting to see the villain get his justice. But at the same time, though, you also know that in the larger scheme of things, the bigger picture, morally it's not right, because ultimately he's still going to kill this man, but really he should be facing criminal justice and not the justice of
Well, yeah, he should be, the corrupt mayor. He should be exposing what he has on him.
Exactly.
And letting him face the social and legal consequences of that.
Right, exactly. Whereas this Riddler in the Batman clearly does not, because he ultimately feels abandoned. He feels that the system has abandoned him. He feels that that through everything he's gone through, all the pain and suffering, he's just realized, you know what? If no one else is going to do this, I'm going to have to do it myself, and I'm going to have to go as far as I can to do it. And that's when you really start to see that mental, just more or less just become that laser focus.
Mm-hmm. I see it as less about the fact that he's killing. It's more, for me, what categorizes him as a horror villain to me is more his methods and honestly just the way that it's being shot.
So, yeah, you're right.
Take Mr. Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
You could do Mr. Freeze as a cheesy, pun-slinging, very tall Austrian guy, like in Batman and Robin. But I think you could make Mr. Freeze scary. Imagine imagine when he freezes somebody, you see their blood freeze the way that, in The Thing, when they go to the, I think it's the Swedish, station.
Yes, the Swedish
When
outpost.
they see that, that's a horror movie.
Yes.
I think if you played it out like that, Mr. Freeze could be scary. Mr. Freeze, if you shoot it the right way, with the right tone, the right style, and that's really what it comes down to is Tim Burton wanted to make a very surreal, whimsical Batman.
Yes.
Christopher Nolan wanted to make a very grounded in reality, action thriller Batman.
In this case, what if Batman really existed in that day and age?
Exactly. Zack Snyder wanted to make just a brutal Batman that isn't really going for scares, but is just going for like the most intense brutality he can think of, completely devoid of joy, which I will defend parts of the Snyderverse. I won't defend all of it. I will defend certain aspects of it till the day I die, but that is a different conversation for a different day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have my own personal things about Zack Snyder's take on DC, but yeah, I digress. Continue.
But I think we can agree that Matt Reeves went into this again almost like, how do we make Batman? Let's put Batman. If Tim Burton said, let's put Batman in Beetlejuice. Christopher Nolan said, let's put Batman in the movie Heat. And Matt Reeves said, let's put Batman in Seven. Let's put him in a David Fincher movie. And ultimately, I think what it really comes down to, it's not just the fact, yes, it could just be coincidence. Well, it's not coincidence, but the fact that it's set on Halloween, that's a fun little detail. That doesn't make it a horror movie. The fact that the Riddler is killing people, that doesn't make it a horror movie. The Joker killed a bunch of people in Dark Knight and Batman 89. It's the way and the style that it's shot in that those scenes are meant to elicit fear.
Yes.
Like when Coulson comes out in, to his car from the nightclub, and the Riddler's waiting for him and jumps out at him in his car.
Yes.
That's your classic setup of a horror movie.
Absolutely. And even like the very first scene with the mayor, as he's just watching television, and just like that one quick cut, and you just see the Riddler just standing behind him, completely silent, just staring at the audience. That was scary. Like I was like,
that's something.
Yeah,
that's Rob Zombie's Halloween. That exact same shot, but it's Michael Myers standing in the living room behind him. That's something that horror movies do. So, to me, it's not about the specific plot. It's not about the subject matter. It's how you shoot it. It's the style you do it in. And I see this, and I know there's going to be people say, oh, well, it's a Batman movie. Yes, but you can play with other genres in comic book movies. I mean, look at Logan. Logan's a Western.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, it is a comic movie, but it toys with genre to be a Western. Spider-Man Homecoming is like a teen comedy. It's like a high school comedy. Yes, it's a comic book superhero movie, but they played with the genre. Captain America Winter Soldier is a 70s spy thriller. Again, yes, it's a comic book movie, but it plays with like espionage and we can't trust each other. And it casts Robert Redford, who was literally in, half those 70s thrillers.
Yes. Which was incredible. I love that.
It was the icing on the cake, to have him be in that. So, to me, if you don't consider Seven and Silence of the Lambs to be horror movies, okay, I guess this is not a horror movie if we're not defining them as such. But if you are considering Seven, and if you are considering Silence of the Lambs, and if you are considering David Fincher's Zodiac as horror movies, I think you have to consider the Batman one too, which I know we've said Zodiac a lot, but I want to talk a little bit just about the movie Zodiac. Have you seen that one?
I've only seen parts of it, but I do have it on Blu-ray, so I am going to sit down to fully watch it because I am a big fan of David Fincher, and along with the game, I definitely want to watch that as well. The game I've heard is very excellent.
Oh, I love the game. The game. Side note: the game. If you take the game and put it together with Seven, you get the Saw movies, which is something Lee Whannell admitted he was a fan of both.
Ah, interesting.
But, I'm of the opinion that Zodiac is David Fincher's masterpiece. I like it better than Seven. I like it better than Fight Club, which I know is kind of an unpopular opinion. But to me, yes, Zodiac is done in the style of a police procedural. But there's a scene in it where, Jake Gyllenhaal's character, I'm drawing a blank on his... Robert Graysmith, goes into Arthur Lee Allen's house, the guy whom he suspects is the killer. And even though nothing happens, he goes into his basement, it is a legitimately terrifying scene. So, again, it's about the style and how it's done. So, I would absolutely say The Batman is a horror movie, and if you don't consider it a horror movie, I would challenge you to say it is, at the very least, it is horror adjacent.
Or maybe even horror-esque. But
horror-esque.
Yeah.
I prefer horror adjacent because to me, horror they're all loaded terms, but
yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And for me personally, the more I spent time with the film of the Batman and really getting a sense of what the Riddler was about, I definitely also got some Dr. Phibes vibes from it, especially with the way he poetically, because that's another thing too that some people don't realize too. I could easily have seen Saul drawing some inspiration from Dr. Phibes, as very much each kill in that movie is a different theme.
Mm-hmm.
Of the plagues of Egypt. So, in a weird way, it's also kind of that same kind of thing here. And you could even say certain sins are committed. Pride, greed, is it vanity?
Oh, definitely among the elites. That
yes,
that he's killing, and just the way. It's not about showing the blood. It's not about showing the gore. It's just about.
Right.
Matt Reeves' goal was to create a creepy atmosphere.
Yes.
To create a dark, unsettling, frightening world, because that's the world that you would want Batman in. And
exactly.
It's just, I'm a huge fan of Batman. He's
Me too.
I've always been obsessed with it. When I was 3, I wanted to be Batman, and I still do. So I love just getting all these different iterations of the character. We've had the gritty action, the grounded action movie with Christopher Nolan. We've had the whimsy of Danny Elfman and Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. We've had the animated mm-hmm. series, which was the perfect representation, I think, of comic book Batman.
Yes, absolutely.
And now we're getting horror movie Batman, which I don't know if they do a sequel, if I would want it to be the same style, if I might want it to try for a different genre. As a horror fan, though, I'm always going to love horror transcending into other things. So
Yep.
I think our final verdict and agreement is that Batman is, at the very least, it is horror adjacent, or if you consider those other movies horror movies, you can't say that the Batman is not.
And I would agree with you, Dave.
Thank you for coming to our Dead Talk. So, as always, I'm Dave. Patrick, next week, tell them a little bit about, remind them.
Oh yeah. So next week, our friend John and I will be discussing some of our favorite episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, focusing more on the horror themed as side of things. So no spy or espionage stuff, or maybe a little sci-fi, but mostly into like creature feature, movie monsters, and just straight up horror, like your Screaming Skulls, your Horror Party Beaches, your Menace, the Hands of Fate, and another fun little topics. So that and I also would like to hope we can discuss a bit of Santo and the Treasure of Dracula. So we'll figure out what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do that. I'm not sure if we'll do 2 different videos for that, or we'll just do it in one super video. But regardless, though, you guys are going to be in for a real treat for some MST3K action. So
I know there's a lot of fans out there. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, but I will be at a convention next weekend, and then I will be posting a video from that on the channel as well. So check back for that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up having one of the Riddler's riddles pinned to your dead body because he got some dirt on you. You know who you are. As always, I'm Dave, and every day is Halloween, and if you're watching The Batman, the opening scene literally is Halloween.
And this is your pal Patrick saying to watch horror films and keep America strong.